Coronavirus deaths in Sweden, which never imposed a hard lockdown, have slowed to a trickle. In late August and early September, most days show one recorded death. Why are you not mentioning that over 70% of the Swedish population is vaccinated, and at least 60% support COVID passports? Why did you forget to mention that part? Hi everyone, fact-checking foreigner here. I can't help but to notice the extraordinary respect Sweden has acquired with right-wing pundits across the internet, ever since this China-engineered, problematic, toxic, superflu end-of-the-world situation started. And it's been truly annoying for someone as I, the unofficial tour guide of Sweden, who's grown up in this Swedish hyper-collectivist anti-freedom culture, to suddenly see Sweden praised over something like their supposed freedom. 7 out of 8 political parties in parliament want to enforce vaccine passports, including our anti-globalist nationalist party, the Sweden Democrats. They want those too. The only party saying no to this idea is our socialist left party. So kudos to them for having a sober thought for once. The majority of this country is vaccinated, and they didn't even need any government push to do it. They just did it because it's comfortable and sounds nice. Just like any other policy you might have heard of. And despite this fact, they're still such state-worshipping lemmings, they want COVID passports, even though the concept has no scientific backing. Israel has been at the forefront medically and with vaccination participation, yet nearly 60% of hospitalized patients in that country were fully vaccinated. Something the public seems to struggle with is that, sadly, vaccines only work as a layer of protection, not a guaranteed 100% immunity. You still have to be careful and take in the whole of protection. And take, for example, the legendary band Kiss, who had to postpone a tour since Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons tested positive for COVID, despite full vaccination. My point here is that these vaccine passports might actually increase contagion and spread the virus rather than decreasing it and keeping it controlled. Because if it wasn't obvious enough with the case of just the flu but I got vaccinated anyway, genius Swede population here, people are indeed morons, and they think getting vaccinated means you don't still have to wear a face mask, you don't have to wash your hands a little extra, and you can stop keeping that distance. That is simply not the case. But a COVID passport would only produce the idea of false security and further enforce the notion that as long as you bother to get a shot, you can walk around and be completely safe, not having to consider any of the general precautions that you've been instructed to take in addition. And this is especially obvious by the fact that people are really just cheering for this authoritarian shit idea so they can travel more. I'm supposed to let the government butt plug my personal integrity just so some unexperienced middle-class asshole can tell themselves they're a cultured world citizen, all because they traveled to some white people resort in Africa. Now obviously, I'm not against well-researched vaccines that actually work. What's absurd here is that people still support the idea of COVID passports, even when the majority of the population have done their good duty as fine citizens and taken some needle dick. And the COVID passport concept is just creepy. Giving your medical journal to a private company so they can give you a nice little barcode. Yeah, that's not weird at all. It's not like those companies have data leaks all the time. And I'm sure that couldn't be abused in similar future settings. Also, Nigeria are the first ones refusing banking services to those who haven't been vaccinated, so how long until other countries get inspired and apply this to other political opinions? Other forms of dissidence? We're already seeing France happily beat the shit out of unvaccinated people with reference to their health and safety, and this is somehow legal, to get your ass kicked for taking a shopping trip as a protester. Why am I supposed to think a system like this wouldn't get abused and set a precedent for other future scenarios? The scary thing about legislations is that they're way easier to enforce and put in place than they are to get rid of. And once a law like this is put into practice, it could be mutated into something far worse when a different government takes over in the future, or God knows what kind of new situation pops up as another challenge for your society. Another thing worth pondering is how many conspiracy theorists do you want your country to have exactly? Is it really worth the social polarization you're gonna create by refusing people fundamental basic human rights? That is, the right to say no to forced medical treatment that you might not be interested in. See, what I especially can't stand is the hypocrisy here. The most impressive thing about COVID is how it turned a systematically racist patriarchy into a trustworthy government that all of a sudden can't be questioned. In the case of Sweden, the same rationality-challenged Swedes who were saying this is just a flu all along now suddenly support COVID passports that will infringe your individual rights over something that is just a flu according to them. You're the same people who refuse to wear face masks and don't keep a distance at all. I've seen this every single time I go to the store. So why would you, of all people, get vaccinated en masse and then argue for the necessity of COVID passports? All you've been saying this entire time, for 2 years straight, is that this is just a flu. When have entire masses of people ever gotten vaccinated over a simple flu, like you said it was? This really means all those old people died for nothing. Keep in mind, this is the same country that's worried more about climate change than their ever-increasing crime statistics, so maybe there's a whole bunch of people, in addition to the Swedes, who should be feeling embarrassed right now. Like, oh, I don't know, all the right-wing pundits with absolutely shit takes that have been praising Sweden's enlightened respect for the individual all along. I gotta say, it's been kind of painful just sitting in this country watching it all unfold. Did you guys seriously think this country gave a shit about freedom? You think that's why they kept saying this is just a flu and didn't take COVID seriously at all? Didn't do any measures at all? Didn't even put a policy in place? What's more likely? The idea that socialist, feminist, climate clit Sweden loves the idea of individuality and freedom, or that they love whatever their establishment comes up with next and just want to take on the global role as the global quirky girl. You think it might be relevant that the government saved 300+ million in taxes from all the dead pensioners they're not going to have to take care of now? Because Sweden made sure not to protect them. You think that might have anything to do with their anti-policy COVID policy? Do you think it's more likely that the Western country with the biggest state apparatus, who constantly brag about how superior they are to Americans, with Swedes thinking Americans are retarded and that America is a third world country, you think these people care about freedom? Or do you think it's something else I've already explained on this channel numerous times, namely the phenomenon of Swedish exceptionalism? Yeah, I think we all know what's up by this point. If you enjoy my videos, then please donate through Patreon or Subscribestar to help keep this all going. All sums are deeply appreciated.